A little bit about the history of MEDEX. MEDEX was founded in 1977. For over 30 years, we have provided 24-hour travel, medical, and security services. From 1977 until around the early 90s, MEDEX concentrated on setting up a call center and developing a database to provide assistance to insurance companies. So insurance companies, primarily in Canada and in the UK, were selling travel insurance policies. MEDEX set up a call center in Maryland and another one in England. And for about 15 years, the core business was just to provide those services to insurance companies that were selling travel insurance policies. The early 90s, MEDEX took a look inside at what we were doing, strategically where we wanted to go, and decided that it was time to change and do a little bit more than just provide services to insurance companies. We decided that it was time to get into the corporate market. So we started selling our services, access to our database and coordination of services, to local corporations and then corporations throughout the U.S. At the same time, we decided we'd like to get into the scholastic market. Travel abroad programs were starting to pick up, so we started working with various colleges and universities. And at that same time as well, we were fortunate enough to pick up a contract with the U.S. Agency for International Development, which provided us with a tremendous amount of contacts and revenue for the company to grow. But it also helped us to develop our database, because people that work through USAID go to just about every country in the world. And so we needed to make sure that as we developed our database of resources, that we had them in just about every country in the world. Throughout the 90s, we focused on developing our core business, growing the company, although it wasn't that dramatic, but more importantly, continuing to develop our resources outside of the U.S. In the late 90s, we decided once again to do some additional strategic planning, look at the core business that we had and how we could leverage that. We decided that we were going to start selling not only travel assistance, but travel insurance. So in order to accomplish that, what we did was to set up MEDEX Insurance Services, which is a licensed insurance agency, which allows us to sell in all 50 states and to collect premium and administer the policies. It's also a licensed third-party administrator, which allows us also to administer claims that would come in under the policies. We initially started out with a direct mail type campaign, direct to consumer, and that has evolved into what today is a very robust e-commerce platform and revenue stream for MEDEX. At the same time we were setting up MEDEX Insurance Services, the company was sold to a group of investors out of the Twin Cities, and as a result of that, the company went through quite a bit of financial problems and management problems. And that's really where I came into the picture. I spent 23 years with Aegon Insurance in a financial capacity. I'm a CPA, and I was the controller of one of their business units in the Baltimore area. And so I had a little bit of merger and acquisition experience and a little bit of how do we fix business units that are ailing. And this just seemed like, first of all, such a wonderful product that was being sold, and for me personally, such a wonderful business opportunity where I could leverage what I had learned throughout my career. So I came in, as was mentioned earlier, as a CFO of the company, stepped up within 6 months as the CEO, went to the owners at that point and secured some additional financing so we could start to grow the business, or to fix the business. Our revenues had been relatively flat for a period of time. The company was financially in trouble, and so the additional capital allowed us to stabilize things and then start to rebuild and get back to the core business. We made 2 significant changes once we got the infusion of capital. One was to relocate our offices. We were in some fairly expensive space in Timonium, and we found something that fit our needs a little bit better in the Towson area. And the second was we stepped back and we looked at our model. At that point, we had a sales office in South Africa, we had an administrative office in China, a sales office in the UK, and as I mentioned earlier, we had the call center in Baltimore and one in Brighton. And we realized that with the advances in technology, we really didn't need the two call centers, and we really didn't need all that we had in the way of sales offices. So what we did was to, over a period of time, close down our call center in Brighton and consolidate everything into our office in Baltimore. And there were a lot of reasons why we decided to do that. Doing business internationally for us is quite challenging because we have to work with hospitals and doctors all over the world. But managing an office is very different. It comes with a whole different set of challenges. The cultural challenges were quite significant. In the U.S., we live to work. In the U.K., where our office was located, they work to live. There were tax and legal issues in the U.K. The VAT tax caused our pricing structure to be a little bit higher. Dispute resolution when we had employee problems. You know, Maryland is an at-will state, and it's very easy to manage people here. In the UK, not so easy. They have the tribunal, which an employee can bring you up in front of for just about any reason at all. And in fact, as we closed the office down, we did have one individual who we hired, and he left us quit twice. And took us up before the tribunal 6 months after we closed the office, even though he had absolutely nothing to do with it. Now, fortunately, you know, we were successful in fighting off the accusations, but it just takes time and burns up money. And then you've got your pension and health care issues, which are very, very different in the UK than in the US. And the last thing, and what really clinched it for us, was management. We had an English manager running the office for us, and same values as the people in the office, which really didn't serve us that well. So we tried getting a work visa and taking people from Baltimore over to the UK on a 6-month visa, but it seemed like once we got them there, by the time they learned what was going on and established themselves, it was time to bring them back and send someone else. So after a period of about 18 months, we decided we'd had enough, and we consolidated everything back in Baltimore. What that did for us was to provide some fairly significant economies of scale, doing everything in one place. It increased the quality of case handling because we didn't have to pass the cases back and forth between the two locations. Efficiency in case management, and consistency in training. Where we were training in 2 locations, we could do everything in one. And it allowed our billing and collection and housing of case information to be much, much easier. In fact, we've recently put in a new system that allowed us to get rid of all the paper in our office so that we could go paperless.